Today I'm going to be covering Heart, which is a neo-noir black and white hospital thriller game where you get to control a pair of old, stiff, long, hard, veiny hands. Dude, hands. There is more to it than that, obviously, and I'm going to let you know about the good, the dark, and if I think it's worth your time and money. So stay locked, crush that like button, enjoy, and I hope it helps.
What is currently happening YouTube? Facepalm here, your friend in Oz and NZ, bringing you reviews, tutorials and game clips, minus the shit. You can follow me on Twitter at Facepalm with a 1, not an L. As for here on YouTube, if you like what you find, then like, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to bring your game face. Let's get it done.
Now, there are a few things that get me going faster than waking up from a coma as a weathered old naked dude in a breezy gown, which no doubt keeps the testicles cool in the summer. So we're off to a good start. The second thing I noticed was the deep-seated sexy man voice that accompanied the aged hands in front of me, and how well the two complemented each other to really give a sense of immediate investment in the main character, which, by the way, is voiced by the original RoboCop, Peter Weller. The hand tracking was flawless with my 2-sensor setup, and the positional audio surrounded me as I would hope in such a moody environment that turned out to be a seemingly abandoned hospital containing bedpans and bum wipes, which is always convenient in the event that you have to unexpectedly shit your pants. After some brief words with myself, I worked out how to break free from the shackles of the man and then decided to have a walk around. And by walk, I mean have a teleport around. Now, generally, I'm not too keen on this form of locomotion, as it tends to detach me from the experience. Though as I play more games with teleportation, I'm finding that it all really depends on how it is implemented and the presented tasks at hand. And in this case, there wasn't really anything in between where I was and where I wanted to be that I was overly keen to investigate, which appeared to be by design. And so it was an actual convenience that teleportation got me from A to B quickly with no fuss. In addition, the way that I always landed in a forward-facing position when jumping from silhouette to silhouette meant that my 2-sensor setup was able to easily keep track of my touch controllers, and that the chance of the Rift's cable tangling was low, which, to be fair, was quite beneficial as far as the prevention of an immersion break goes from a loss of touch tracking or having to stop midstream and untangle my Rift's cable. The blur effect that kicked in when I leant over too far wasn't as negatively overdone as half of the internet would lead you to believe. In fact, I found I had enough room to lean in on the relevant things I needed to interact with in order to progress the story without feeling like I'd missed something important. This, in conjunction with the teleport mechanic, actually meant I progressed through the game at a good pace without all the in-between bullshit and the constant feeling of maybe I should backtrack and check that area again 5 times, which I always do when I can't figure out how to move on when a challenging puzzle presents itself. And what this did was allow me to focus on the story at hand, and as it turned out to be a solid story, this made me happy. The controls were extremely intuitive to the point where I could have bet a bong rip which buttons on the controller did what before the game even had a chance to fill me in. And being able to press a button on the touch controller to reset my view at any time, which I think should be standard across VR in general, was constantly put to good use. The inventory system was obvious to use, with portals appearing in the shape of whatever item you should stow at the time, and then appearing again when you needed to use that item. Technically, this was hand-holding, but given that it was kind of obvious what items you should use and when you should use them anyway, I didn't feel like I was being babied too much. The in-game puzzles that I had to solve in order to progress the story were reasonably straightforward and a lot more story-focused in place of having a higher degree of difficulty. I expected to look for keys and turn levers to go from section to section, and that is essentially what I got. And while most of these tasks were presented in unique, engaging, and impressive ways, I did feel they were a little on the easy side. And the same can be said for the bosses, which, while they were a great twist on classic B-movie horror references, during the boss battles they basically just waited in between cues for you to attack them, which removed any sense of urgency. And it was this leniency that meant I didn't die for a long time, and when I did, it was because I put my hand in something I shouldn't have. Yo mama! Easy 90 references aside, while the bosses were mostly mostly sitting ducks, the overall looming evil of the game and the real lurking demons throughout is what gave this ordeal a sense of uneasy darkness, and that is what I came for. The characters I met in the game turned out to be more than meets the eye, and you'll get why I chose that reference once you play the game. And with their life-size physical presence, I felt the need to make eye contact when listening or speaking to them, which gave me that sense of connection that you really need to have to invest in a character's story and ultimately decides whether you give a fuck or not if they die. Overall, the story was immersive, and along with games like Edge of Nowhere and Chronos, helps to set a great benchmark for games to follow. Everything in the game, from the characters to the mechanics, came together in a cohesive whole to ensure that the pace was solid and the game was interesting and engaging throughout. The game did irk me in a couple of ways though, as while the graphics were crisp and clear overall, the text was tough to read unless I was reading it like a bat who'd lost his inch-thick monocle, which is one of these if you don't know. And this meant that it was too much of a struggle to read through all the comics scattered in this world, which add additional backstory to the characters and the game itself. A shame that, and something that could have easily been remedied with bigger text. Also, some of the object sound effects from things like smashing bottles was a little amateurish. For example, I found the animation of a breaking bottle was a lot shorter than the shattering sound that went with it, and that shattering sound wasn't like a solid old glass bottle smashing into a handful of pieces. It was more like the thinnest piece of glass sheet shattering into 1,000 pieces of finely sprinkled sand. Unnecessary overkill in my opinion, and being an audiophile, it is shit like that that does annoy me. A heavier and shorter sound effect would have been much more fitting. Little things, but a shame nonetheless. As for tech specs, the game is mirrored to a full screen output, which is handy for those of us creating content just like this. The whole thing ran smoothly at max settings on a GTX 1070, and I had no noticeable sickness or discomfort from the game at all. Replayability wise, I'll probably go through a second time, but after that I'll likely move on as the story has been told, and there are a lot of other things in VR that I'm itching to get on at the minute. In summary, Heart is a worthy purchase that shies away from the jump scares in place of more menacing tones and sinister motives. And while the game is a little on the pricey side, you get what you pay for. And given that it comes in at about what I expect to pay for a AAA PlayStation or Xbox title, in this stage of early VR adoption, I don't think that the asking price is unfair. The sound design is, for the most part, great. The visual style and graphical clarity, with the exception of text, is brilliant. The story stacks up. The characters fulfill their duty in bolstering the backstory and giving you the care factor required to stay engaged. The controls are intuitive, the atmosphere all-encompassing, the goodies are good, the baddies bad, and the darkness is pretty dark. And all this easily places Wilson's Heart in my top 5 Rift experiences so far. All in all, I give this an 8 out of 10. Get it, you won't regret it. If you like this type of game, that is. And that's it for this review. So if you like this video, then crush that like button, click the links on screen now for more content, or click the XO logo to subscribe if you wanna. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace!